Well, good morning. It's great to be here in Miami with this illustrious crowd of people. Isaac told me to come here and talk about new media and talk about innovation. So in a typical corporate way, I brought in multimedia PowerPoint presentations with video and all that, and then I came to this room. So we've put all that aside, and I'm just going to share a couple of thoughts. Basically, over the last 2 years, we've undergone two very critical cultural transformations. The transformation of going public, and I'm not talking about the administrative process of going public, but actually the cultural undertaking of going public, and also the cultural undertaking of making a company that was completely decentralized, global, which is the combination of global and local. And that's what I want to spend a couple of minutes with you, and then I'll open up for any questions that you may have. And I will try to put the concept of social media and digital within the overall context of those two elements that actually drove our strategy. Visa the brand has been in existence for 50 years as a company, but as a public entity in March, only 2 years. So it's a very interesting blend of a culture that has been working together for a very long time, but with new operating systems for only 2 years. What does going public meant for the people working at Visa? One word: accountability. Before, we were an association. We existed to provide services to the banks. And as such, it was constructed on a not-for-profit model, total service orientation, and importantly, a very interesting, highly participatory approach where each bank had one vote regardless of its size. So whether you were JP Morgan Chase or whether you were Lucius Bank in Wichita, you still had one voice and you were entitled to deliver that level of service. From a marketing standpoint, which I'm responsible for, what it meant is that the return on investment exercise was really an academic exercise. Why? Because you're a service orientation. You exist to drive the business of your bank owners and customers. So the top line, the numerator, was volume through the system. That is $4.6 trillion as opposed to revenues, which are about $8 billion. And the marketing budget, which is about $1 billion out of $4.6 trillion is really a random exercise. So pretty much everything was justified. All you had to do is get together with your advisory boards. You had different advisory boards by regions. They were composed of the banks that own the system in that particular region. You presented a proposal, and whether that proposal was the World Cup or whether that proposal was the Olympics or whether that proposal was whatever you wanted to do, again, return on investment, thousands of dollars per dollar investment. Why? 4.61, easy. The moment that we became a publicly traded company, the numerator became revenue. The objective was to drive revenue. The objective was to lead the market on innovation. The objective was to actually drive business where business was held. So all of a sudden, if you have a $1 billion budget out of an $8 billion company revenue, it becomes the single biggest item in your P&L, and all of a sudden marketing becomes the spotlight of every single analyst around the world in a new publicly traded company. So all of a sudden we had to pretty much change the mindset of the marketing organizations towards one of accountability. So all the models that we have for return on investment had to be completely standardized so that we can actually drive the right level of revenues and returns, because at the end of the day, this was no longer about servicing, but about delivering return on investment to our shareholders. That was a very, very, very critical cultural transformation that we had to undergo. The other one was all about planning. Monthly targets, quarterly targets. You're not a publicly traded company. First quarter, we get together. We have all the different regions of the world, and some of the regions were underspending the budget, and we're going like, guys, you're underspending the budget. What's going on? That's going to give a signal to Wall Street as to what is the right level of investment required to drive the right level of revenue. The response, don't worry. By December 31st, we'll have it all spent. Right? So we had to pretty much dramatically change the planning process. So a lot of my time was spent structuring a fully accountable process of planning and return on investment, and taking that process to the road, because at the end of the day, you cannot lead this by mandate from the top. You have to actually go take it to the road, one region at the time, one key country at the time, teaching, and then making people accountable by delivering a standardized type of process.